heroes. You're defense attorneys that are working to put yourselves out of the criminal defense of drug business. You are people who can walk into the store as patients and buy all the pot you want. And yet we're up here working to solve this problem for those that don't have those freedoms. I think that speaks a lot to our motivation. I'd like to introduce the new chairman of the board of NORML, Mr. Norm Kent.
Thank you. As long as we are saluting individuals, there is one person in particular that I thought it would be worthy for all of us to take a moment to stand up and turn around and salute. He is seated next to, he's seated in the corner of the room in the last row in the right chair, standing near Keith Stropp. His name is J.F. Oswald. You know him as Osh. The reason I want to salute Osh more than anybody else here today is because he typifies what NORML is, has been, and will continue to be. He is a patient with a C7 spinal injury who drives to conference after conference in his little Chevy van. And while we were talking about the dangers of negotiating I-70 West up to Aspen last night in hail and sleet and snow, Mr. Oswald has taken his Chevrolet van and driven to 9 different conferences in Aspen from his home in Louisiana, although he does have a home in Lyons, Colorado, and why not? In the past decade, Osh has worked with Coloradans for medical rights, along with medical rights organizations in Oregon, Massachusetts, and Michigan. Osh has also been to the past 10 Key West legal conferences, even breaking his hip at the last one, and we helped him into his van and he drove home to Louisiana without medical assistance. And he's been to 10 consecutive Seattle Hemp Fests. People like Osh are what NORML is and is about. He is in the back room, and let me thank him again for being here. Osh, like L.B. Musica, who was arrested first a quarter of a century ago, is an unheralded hero. It was August of 1988 when L.B. Musica was growing marijuana in a backyard in Hollywood and got into a fight with her domestic partner, who, when the police responded, said, "Why don't you arrest her? She's the one growing pot." And the police arrested her. They offered her, a little bit of probation if she would just stop growing pot. And she said, "No, I need to grow pot for my eyesight. I've had 23 cataract operations for glaucoma in my eyes, and I need my medical marijuana." And she stood naked before the cannon, went before a jury, pled not guilty, and was acquitted 25 years ago. And I would like to tell you that a quarter century has passed, and all is well and right in America and the state of Florida, where I'm from, Fort Lauderdale. But less than a few weeks ago, Kathy Jordan, a Lou Gehrig's disease patient, who has been using marijuana medicinally for the past 25 years, was threatened with arrest by the local police when it was revealed that the Kathy Jordan medical marijuana bill was introduced to the state of Florida through a state legislature. The Manatee County Sheriff's Office went out and arrested. They didn't arrest her. They seized her 25 plants, and the 25 plants her husband was growing. In this particular instance, she was facing 15 years for cultivation. 25 years later, a quarter of a century after L.B. Musica, still faced with prosecution and the threat of arrest. So the battle NORML has fought is continuing to be fought. At every level, in every community, where states are not legal. Stop and think. When we talk about 18 or 20 states that have moved towards legalization, medicalization, or decriminalization, we are in fact talking of 30 that have not. And Florida is amongst those that have not. Although now we have a wealthy lawyer in Orlando who is initiating a petition with his own funding to get it on the ballot in Florida. I don't know how it will do. I don't know whether we'll get the 650,000 signatures necessary to get it on the ballot, but it would be to allow medical marijuana. It does no good for Kathy Jordan, who faces arrest. So the NORML Legal Committee, with myself and David Michael and Alan Silber and Matt Cumin, have taken action now, and we filed a suit in Manatee County, a declaratory judgment action, asking that the medical marijuana that Kathy Jordan cultivates be declared her civil and constitutional right. And it dawned on me what we were doing is what the new normal is all about. In the new America, where pot becomes decriminalized and legalized, we are not going to be defendants anymore. We are going to become plaintiffs. And NORML is going to be a consumer advocacy group where lawyers will not only represent individuals who are charged with criminally being prosecuted for the possession of marijuana, they will be able to represent consumers who maybe acquire marijuana that was not properly grown, that had mold in it, that had too many herbicides or toxicity in the quality of marijuana. We're going to become plaintiffs. We're going to protect people's rights to use marijuana instead of representing them against unjust prosecutions by law enforcement. Let me tell you what the difference in 25 years with Elvie Musica and Kathy Jordan is that might become important for you as you practice and learn about marijuana in the next few days. When Elvie Musica was arrested and prosecuted, the only plea offer we had was if she stops growing, we won't ask to put her in jail, but if you go to trial, we're going to ask for a prison term. The state attorney in Manatee County 3 weeks ago declined to prosecute Kathy Jordan, even though she was arrested by the sheriff. The state attorney wrote a memo citing my Elvie Musica case from 25 years before and the Jenks case in Florida, which involved a husband and wife who had contracted HIV through a blood transfusion, and said, I've looked at Kathy Jordan's situation. She has an incurable, debilitating, horrible medical condition, Lou Gehrig's disease, for which she has suffered relentlessly for 25 years. And it's wrong to prosecute this woman. I refused to do so. And he declined to prosecute her and entered a no pros on her behalf. And we had a young lawyer from Stewart step up and try to defend her, Michael Mignardi, a new member of the legal committee of NORML. These are the kinds of things we're going to be doing as we move towards the future. We're going to be representing individuals who are plaintiffs, people who want to consume marijuana legally or under the umbrella of decriminalization. And that's going to be the task of NORML and NORML lawyers, because to understand NORML from the outset, lawyers are just one small part, if you will, for the federal government of a vast conspiracy of activists across this country who are doing so much everywhere. On 4/20, while NORML was represented at the High Times Activists Cannabis Cup, in Philadelphia, we had a Midwest regional conference in Pennsylvania where over 300 activists attended from 3 or 4 different states as we move not necessarily to big, large national conferences, but regional conferences that coalesce individuals from small states, like we're doing in Florida now, where we're integrating groups from Tampa and Orlando and South Florida and Florida State up in Tallahassee to come together. So the idea that Mr. Abel just suggested about a regional Midwest conference is a great idea, because it's very difficult to get people like J.P. Osh to come to Seattle to a Hempfest every year, so far away. But that's normal, because on the same day we were doing that, Dan will tell you that in Illinois, at one of the local, and Dan was 10 years, he was the chair of the board of directors, Illinois had its own marijuana convention with its own activists at the same time on 420 at a convention center in Illinois. And NORML, through Eric Altieri, our staff representative, was represented similarly at the same time in Texas. And on the same weekend that we had the Midwest Regional Convention in Philadelphia, we also had Sabrina, who represents the National Women's Alliance, speaking at the Peachtree NORML Festival in Atlanta. And while we were doing that, our deputy director was testifying before Kaiser Permanente in Southern California to a group of medical doctors on the effects of cannabinoids on the blood system. And he left there to fly to Oakland to testify before a state legislative delegation there, only the next day to work with Craig Small and Governor Hickenlooper in Colorado for the Medical 64 legalization component here. NORML is all this and more. Representatives in cities, states, and communities everywhere else representing activists for marijuana. It's more than just lawyers representing people who get busted on the side of a road. But that's our task and that's our duty, because we must not forget that as 20 states have legalized, decriminalized, or medicalized, so too have 30 states not done so. So this is what NORML is. It's a vast network of spirited people, from the last person that spoke, that young graduate who wants to learn more about NORML. And if you do, that young undergraduate, go ask Keith Stropp what it was like in 1972 when we were starting out in Washington, D.C., and Stuart Mott would host a benefit at his house, and Hugh Hefner underwrote the initial NORML convention with a $50,000 loan from the Playboy Foundation. We've been alive and surviving for more than 40 years. 4 decades as warriors fighting against a drug war we all know, sitting here today, has been an abysmal failure, an abominable decimation of rights that we have to personal freedom and individual liberty. And every time you get up in a courtroom and stand up and say that the arrest was wrong, the prosecution illegal, you're standing up for personal freedom. And you're doing so today here in Colorado as lawyers and activists and others have done before them. So we welcome you, we thank you, we appreciate what you have to do, because what you're going to learn here today is, what are the immigration consequences of a drug conviction? Can you be thrown out of the country? We already know that there are still states where women can lose benefits and their rights to children, custody, if they get convicted of marijuana. We know students can lose scholarships. We know still that people can have their cars seized. We know about the Reagan Forfeiture Act from 1984 that still impacts your practice. So while NORML is a network of activists, individuals across the country doing so much more, and our staff reaches out from coast to coast, so too do you as lawyers represent the voice of those who do not have one. You are the advocates we need. You are the advocates we hope to educate, and we are hopefully going to give you as well in the next 4 days an opportunity to celebrate Aspen, Colorado, and the victories we have won, particularly when you get to Owl Farm and Jerry Goldstein's house. I think you'll appreciate and share with each other the vast network we have created and continue to maintain. So on behalf of the Board of Directors of NORML and NORML chapters everywhere, from Fort Lauderdale to Fort Maine to Sacramento, where a new businessman just started his own chapter, and I want to thank you and welcome you here, and I hope you get to experience the knowledge that we have. We even have from our Board of Directors here, George, who will tell you about a agrarian and a new resident to Colorado, as he said, from Washington State. So thank you all for coming. Hope you are entertained and educated and appreciate the opportunity we're giving you, and we thank you for your support.